Oh. Hello, mighty, mighty souls. My name is Stephen Koss, also known as Stu. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about a series that I really got involved with on Gaia called Initiation, Journey to the Origin of the Universe. It's by Matthias De Stefano. I might be butchering that all the time, so I'm just going to refer to him as MDS going forward here. And the first episode is called Unity. Now, MDS claims that he can access the Akashic Records, right? And the Akashic Records, if you're not familiar with them, think of them as like a Library of Congress for the universe, past, present, and future. And he's able to tap into these, which Edgar Cayce, if you're familiar with who he is, he was called the Sleeping Prophet. He was born in Kentucky in the late 1800s and passed away in 1945, but he was the most renowned medium of our time, 20,000 readings in Virginia Beach. And he would just lay on the couch and cross his arms over his chest and fall asleep, and he was able to, just by hearing a name and a location of somebody, tap into their Akashic Records and answer the questions that they seeked. He was so popular that it killed him. You know, they said you need to stop. He was doing 2 readings a day. They said that was enough, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, but he was doing up to 8 readings a day, and he was booked in advance 2 years out. But the significance of that is, with this first episode, Unity, to understand the questions that we keep asking ourselves, like, you know, where do we come from? Who am I? And why are we here? And I hope, for myself, I've been searching for those answers for quite some time. So much so I've got to talk now to you guys over here, because people in my life don't want to understand that or don't want to live there, aren't ready. But there's a lot of other knowledge out there if we're searching it and we're open, and not just open with our heads, but we're open with our heart and we're feeling it. So this is going to be my interpretation of the first episode, Unity, and I hope to take it through the whole season here and just get a better understanding of, you know, where we come from, who we are, and why we're here. So let's just start this episode out here. So currently, you know, we're living in the 3rd dimension, right? This is me, Steven, the 3rd dimension, all right? And I identify, it's kind of funny as I think about it, like I identify as Steven or Stu, always in there, but who else am I? Why am I just be that one person? And why do I cling to it so hard? Well, we know there's more dimensions. String theory is 10 dimensions plus time. MDS refers to 9 dimensions. I've heard as far as 20-some dimensions. And even that's kind of interesting, because how could I even put a number on something that I almost think is infinite? I guess that's like my 3D logic trying to do that. But you're in a 3D, and there's a void there, you know? There's just this, I felt it my whole life. And just, something just wasn't right. I wasn't complete. I was looking for unity always, but just coming up short. And I was just like, why can't I find that? Because humanity's been searching for that unity for quite some time. You know, you'll see it. People say, oh, they found Jesus, or they have a moment of God moment where, now I'm whole, now I don't feel that void anymore. You know, it's very interesting that all the wars, most wars that are fought over trying to find this unity over their religion and how they see how unity began, the story of creation. And that's this, that's getting lost in the spider's web. You know, if we're just living in the 3rd dimension, and let's just say, what is a dimension, right? A dimension is just a different view, a different perspective, let's say, of reality, of the one reality. So we experience the 3rd dimension every day when we get caught up in chores and laundry and schoolwork and golf, gardening, and things like that. And we think this is the only place. If we can't feel it, hear it, see it, touch it, with our five senses, how can it really exist? And the thing with the dimensions is, the only way to understand the different dimensions is through your heart muscle, or chakra. Because you'll always be able to feel before you can understand. And that's one thing, if you guys are familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, awesome, teacher as well on YouTube, many books and seminars, and he always says, open up with your heart chakra, open up and feel. And this is something that I've heard many times before, but I've just recently started to accept and understand how it works. So it's just, understand how to see those dimensions. And the first dimension is unity, right? Where it all began. We'll use the Big Bang Theory kind of as a good starting off point for us to understand it in the third dimension, right? We understand from science, which is a theory, that the universe exploded, and it's exploding and ever expanding, never to stop. And they can actually measure that in time. I don't know how, I want to say it was 13 billion years ago. I could be wrong on that. But we all struggle to go back to this first dimension of unity, where it all began. The only problem in that dimension is that there's no physicalness to it, there's no logic to it. You can't experience it in a human form per se. And humanity continues to look outward externally, to fill that void that we have. Right? We're fighting wars like, let's use Christians and Muslims, the Crusades, our way is right, your way is wrong. No, this is what God is, this is what heaven is. When I get here, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. So we search externally. I just think, let's say, we've always looked to the stars, right? For answers at night, before TV and Netflix and radio, we stared at the stars all night and we looked to them for answers, to the heavens, and they help us. And we want to continue to further find that thing to do what? To fill the void. Right? We got to fill this void. And the only way to fill that void, that separation, is we got to search out there. If I go a little further, and I'll find something new, and it'll bring me back to wholeness. I'll feel substance. It'll bring me back to unity, right? Where unity is the first dimension, and all other dimensions are contained in it. As MDS explains, he's saying, in the beginning, let's just use the creation story he uses, there's nothingness, right? There's the void. And this is an interesting thing because I always, as a young boy, I always thought about, what if there's just nothing? It was like one of those questions where you're like, a tree's falling in the woods and no one's there, does it make a sound? But if no one's there to hear it, how can it make a sound? And I would think all the time as a kid, I can't believe I still remember this at 40 years old. I was like, what if there was just nothingness? Complete emptiness. But then in the universe, there was thought. And that thought started to vibrate. Higher and higher, higher. And then it asked a question. Who can I become? After I understood I am. And there was thought was happening. It was like, I am. That's why the powerful statement, that's very important. I am has so much power in it. When you bash yourself and you're having a million thoughts and you say, I am stupid, I am not good enough, that's such a strong declaration. So you want to change that, but just be aware of that. But I am wanting to find out, who could I be? So through the first dimension, a consciousness exploded and wanted to experience all other dimensions to find out who it could become. So I'm just trying to think where we want to go from there. You know what I mean? Sorry, I get stuck. This is my first time. I guess the unity, let's just go back to the third dimensional type of thing, because we're all searching for unity, right? I remember when I was like about 20 years old, there was a guy at the gym and he was like, I've been searching for peace of mind for so long. And he's like, I got it. I'm fulfilled. I guess we're all kind of searching for that balance, that unity, right? But in the 3D, we don't want to live there, right? We want to be bogged down with, I'm Steven, and I've got school and workouts and errands. And if I could just get a better job, it'll lead to higher pay, better partner, and it'll fill this void that I keep searching for. But instead of searching externally for this, all we have to do is go inside. If you think about like a child, right? Everybody loves children and would do everything for the children. Every excuse can be made for the children to justify something. But then we look at children and we dismiss their thoughts at times. They can go anywhere and experience this unity because they haven't been conditioned through the third dimension and know that that's bullshit, that's make-believe, that's nonsense, and you should stop talking about that. Well, you see, through a child doesn't been indoctrinated, so they're excited. They want to learn. They want to see, I am, what can I become? Why is the sky blue? How do we get to that place? Really, what do they have to eat there? How does that food taste? They want to experience all these things. But by the time we get older, like Dr. Joe says, by the time we hit 35, our life is just a routine of subliminal patterns that we barely ever mess with. I mean, think about the same way you get up in the morning. Think about the same way you go to the bathroom, the same way you brush your teeth, the same stuff you like to eat for dinner, the same routes you take to work, the same people you hang out with, the same hobbies you continue to do. And most of it is going, and you're not in control of it, and then you keep on searching for this unity that you can't find. It's like, you gotta understand that the unity, the first dimension, has all other dimensions inside of it, and that there is only one truth, right? One truth, not I. One truth. One self. And we are an expression, or you might say like a hologram, of that self. Experiencing who I am can become. Now that's interesting, isn't it? If you gotta take yourself out of the 3D and say, this one truth, one self, okay, people most likely are gonna say God. I don't like that term so much. I prefer source or universal mind. So this one thought, this one truth, this one self explodes from the first dimension into all the other dimensions through different expressions, so the self can experience who they can become, who I can become. Now, when we're stuck in the 3D too much, we look at, the reason I don't like that word is because I think that people look to the old man with the gray beard, judgmental in a 3D perspective, which I totally disagree with. And they get stuck in the Matrix, right? We've seen the movie, we've heard the Matrix, and one thing that MDS talks about is like people will fight against this, and they'll just be a, what's to say? Let's get my drawings here, but. That's my spider web. Instead of being the spider here, you're the fly. Just caught in the web instead of experiencing the different levels of the web. Being able to move in and out of it and experience unity, the first dimension, but you're not experiencing it through how you perceive the third dimension, through your senses. You can only feel in the first dimension, and the feeling is all the feelings. Then it just turns into void, which is just a numbness floating through space kind of thing. So to break us out of this, because nobody wants to be a fly in the web. I don't want to be dinner tonight for nobody. We got to remember that who we are is the one truth. That we're just an expression of that truth, and we're trying to experience everything that the I am as. Who can I become? Let's think of this like, if you're familiar with the hero's journey, you'll see that play out in most all movies, right? The movie starts out, the main character is doing all right or whatever, and then a predicament, something happens, and then they fall to their knees and get crushed, and they've got to figure out how to grow and learn this lesson and defeat the demons. And then they come back home and they're like, man, I've been away for 6 months. We went across the Atlantic. I slayed a dragon. I came home. I figured it out. And I'm telling you now, family. And this is the same thing with the first dimension and unity and what the expression is, right? You have this question of who I can become, and explodes out to all the other dimensions in all different forms to Stephen Koss. And then I learn in that perspective, in that dimension, because this dimension is just one perspective of reality, the way I see it. But then when I come back home, I can say, this is who I've become. So the goal in unity, or what MDS believes to be the truth, is that we had this point at the first dimension in the core, right? And then it explodes, out to all these other dimensions. And that self wants to experience all these other dimensions until it, right up here, right? Until it comes back around full circle and then explains that story and gets it. I guess I'm trying to think of any other points I want to hit here. That's important. Okay, like unity, like MDS was saying, unity is the only constant. It's the only existence. And this is different than the unity like we were talking about earlier in the 3D, where we just want to be like, oh, we're all one. We're in this together. COVID-19, we're in this together. But we will slay people who ain't get the vaccinated or are using their mask properly or staying 6 feet away. And we're experiencing again in the third dimension as a human, instead of understanding that a human being, Stephen Koss, is only one part of self. or I am. If that makes sense to you. I was doing this because I know it's difficult material. It's difficult for me, and I've been doing this. I've been searching for 20 years for those answers I was telling you about, where we come from, why are we here, who are we? And like I said, shout out to Vince and Now Creations, Mighty Mighty Souls. It's my teacher in Ashtabula, where we read books and we were able to explain higher conscious type of thoughts, as opposed to the lessons that have been drilled into my head from Catholic school as I was raised over and over and over. So we hope to just keep going through this and just get a better understanding of who we are and where we come from. And just seeing things from different dimensions and knowing that if life's getting tough, man, you're having a bad day, you lost your job, you got in a fight with your woman, you ain't got no money for food, whatever, your car broke down, you got to realize that those are third dimensional problems, and that's just one part of your true self, of the I am. And don't get bogged down in that. Know that you can become the spider and move through the different levels, the different dimensions, different perspectives of reality. And don't be stuck in the fly and be like, my life's shit, car's broke, girl don't love me, blah, blah, blah. And you just keep going on this vicious cycle and not understanding truly what you're trying to experience, which is just the expression of who you can become. What can you create? And then bringing that all the way back home to unity. I hope that made sense. I tried to do this yesterday, didn't work out so well. But I feel better about it. I'm glad you watched it. I'm happy you watched it all the way through. I hope you got some out of it. If you want to let me know something you didn't understand or just make a comment, always open to that. But we'll hit that as episode 1, and the next one's a real tough one, duality, which I trip on a lot. So we're getting there. Stephen Koss, smile big, shine bright. Peace.